Hello, everyone. This is Jeffrey Kerr. I'm here today with Alex Meyer to discuss our predictions for nominations for this year's Emmy Awards. It will be they'll be announced this Tuesday morning, and we'll be going through all the categories GoldDerby.com is letting us predict. We'll be starting with the drama categories. And Alex, would you mind going first with Best Drama Series?
Sure. And my predictions are Game of Thrones, Killing Eve, This Is Us, Pose, Ozark, Better Call Saul, and Homecoming.
Okay, I have a lot of the same. I have six of the same as you, and so here's where I got. And okay, this is probably the first of probably several categories in my predictions right now where I have a surprising omission. So, are you ready to hear it?
Sure.
Okay, my predicted lineup right now is Game of Thrones, Killing Eve, Better Call Saul, Ozark, Succession, Homecoming, and Pose. That's right. I have This Is Us missing for the first time.
Oh, man. Well, given its recent second consecutive win at the SAG Awards, we know at the very least that the actors branch, well, at least we know that actors love This Is Us, and we know that the actors branch of the Television Academy loves the show since it has won at least one acting Emmy every year. And like the Film Academy, I assume the Television Academy's biggest branch is probably the actors branch. So based on that, I'm thinking it's going to stay around for at least one more year. And we already know it's going to be around for at least three more seasons because NBC gave it a 3-season renewal. And the creators have said it was their goal to have it be like a 6-season show.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
mm, w-
I tried to squeeze in Succession, but I just couldn't find room for it.
well, well, who knows? Maybe there'll be some sort of tie in the nominating process that leads to 8 nominees this year.
Mhm. Yeah, maybe it'll happen.
Yeah.
'Cause Succession did perform better than expected at some awards groups earlier this year, like the DGA, for example,
Yeah, where Adam McKay won for directing the pilot.
which was a very surprising win.
Hmm. Yes, and while yes, it does appear that the actors branch is the one who respects This Is Us most within the industry, as evidenced by it winning the SAG for Best Ensemble in a Drama Series the last 2 years. But then again, it did lose a bit of momentum with the Emmys last year when it underperformed in nominations, which makes me wonder how well it could do this year.
Mm. I mean, I'm gonna say it probably maybe gets around the same number of nominations it got last year. 'Cause it
Probably.
'cause it 'cause This Is Us, just when you think it's run out of ways to shock the audience, it manages to find some way to do it again, and I'll kinda talk about that more when we get into the acting categories.
Okay. Yeah. So again, it's risky, but hey, I thought the hell with it. I'm gonna try and see. So we'll see. So are you ready to talk about best actor in a drama series?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going first this time. Okay, the
Okay.
lineup I have right now is Jason Bateman, Ozark, Bob Odenkirk, Better Call Saul, Richard Madden, Bodyguard, Sterling K. Brown, This Is Us, Billy Porter, Pose, and Brian Cox, Succession.
Okay, well, this is a category where I have a major omission.
Ooh.
Okay, so my rankings are, Jason Bateman, Bob Odenkirk, Sterling K. Brown, Billy Porter, and then my last two are Milo Ventimiglia for This Is Us and Kit Harington for Game of Thrones.
Okay, those
So yes, I am predicting, despite him winning the Golden Globe, I am predicting Richard Madden gets snubbed.
Oh, wow. How come?
Well, number one, as Tom O'Neill's slap the stud theory. I think that might
Yeah.
happen here. And number two, Bodyguard just doesn't seem to have momentum beyond his performance. I
Well,
mean, I see it as being one of those shows that might be well loved in England where it's set and filmed, although surprisingly, it couldn't even win top honors at the BAFTA TV Awards over there. So and yeah, I mean, it seems to have done more better with like award shows where the nominees and winners are decided by members of the media and not members of the industry, like the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice, because Richard Madden did not get nominated at the SAG Awards, which is decided by the industry, though then again, the SAG Awards are often notorious for being late to the party.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, then again, the slap the stud syndrome could still apply to Kit Harington.
true, but we did see Kit Harington get nominated a few years ago, albeit when as a supporting actor, and but given that this is literally the last chance to nominate the show, I think they'll want to at least acknowledge the legacy of the show by not nominating him because Jon Snow is such a big fan favorite character
Well, yes, though, but
and
that.
probably one of the least controversial characters of this final season. Because while I
Hmm,
didn't watch the season, I read all the recaps and outrage articles that were surfacing all the time.
hmm. Well, I was about to say that. Well, the thing is, to date, Kit Harington has only been nominated once for Game of Thrones, which was in supporting back in 2016. A lot of us thought he was getting into lead actor last year, yet that didn't happen. And though, I mean, again, as you mentioned, this is the final season, so it is possible he could finally make the cut this time.
Hmm. Yeah, and plus with Bodyguard, like I said before, not many people are predicting it to get nominations anywhere else, like for drama series or for any of the other supporting cast members. So that's kind of why I have Richard Madden being snubbed. I could
Well,
be wrong, but we'll see.
yeah, it's possible. Then again, it's also possible that Bodyguard may just surprisingly overperform in nominations. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
You can never really tell with shows in their freshman season. But I
yeah.
do have Milo Ventimiglia getting back in for This Is Us again because I think with the whole exploration of the past season dealing with Jack's time in the Vietnam War. I think that could certainly help because it provides new insight into him, particularly in his relationship with his brother Nicky,
Hmm.
because that in itself became a much bigger storyline than I think even the fans were anticipating.
Well, yeah, it would be a safe bet to predict Milo, but well, I have Brian Cox getting in because while he may not have gotten recognized anywhere for his role in Succession, he's still an acting veteran who is also a previous Emmy winner for the 2000 miniseries Nuremberg.
Yeah, I would if there were a seventh place slot, I'd probably put him there.
Well, yeah,
So I do think he's probably on the bubble.
well, yes, and of course, like I mentioned in drama series, who knows? Maybe there'll be some sort of tie in the nominating process that leads to 7 acting nominees or even 8.
Mhm.
Yes, and well, yeah, and also just this theory I have that if Succession does really well in nominations, I would not be surprised if Brian Cox shows up in this category.
Yeah, I mean, I have it predicted in a couple other categories, but it hasn't really gotten that much traction. I mean, maybe in like some guilds, but certainly not really at the main award shows.
Hmm.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So anyway, now on to best actress, lead actress in a drama series.
All right, and this is the first of my two super bets.
All right.
And I have one person in here who's kind of on the bubble, but I'm predicting her to get through because of her show and because I think her nomination would be pretty historic if it were to happen. So my lineup right now is Sandra O oh, Killing Eve, Laura Linney Ozark, Jodie Comer Killing Eve, Julia Roberts Homecoming, MJ Rodriguez Pose, and Emilia Clarke Game of Thrones.
Okay, I believe I have 5 of the same people getting in. So here's my lineup. It is Sandra O, Laura Linney, Jodie Comer, Julia Roberts, Robin Wright for House of Cards, and MJ Rodriguez.
Okay. Yeah, I was tempted to put in Robin Wright, but then I thought, based on the very negative reaction to the House of Cards series finale, I and and the fact that Pose is already in its second season, which will help put it in fresh into Emmy voters' minds. And given the Emmys' love overall for Ryan Murphy in general, I just think that gives MJ Rodriguez a bigger boost. And I think at the very least with Emilia Clarke, it is Game of Thrones last season, and her character Daenerys has played a very big role and a very controversial one because sh from what I read, she attacks King's Landing after they surrender to her, not before. And as a result, she kills like thousands of innocent civilians, which made a lot of people, a lot of fans very upset. But, it still requires a strong performance to do that kind of a twist.
Hmm.
So I mean, and plus with a lot of these Game of Thrones fans, many of them probably only watch that show and don't really watch a lot of anything else. So they don't. The TV Academy has to be. I guess they probably don't have time to get as invested as much in these characters as everyone else, but they will pay attention to the performance.
Hmm. Well, yeah, they are snobs after all.
Hmm.
Yes.
And plus, they nominated her, I think, 3 times as a
Yes, they
supporting
have.
actress. So they clearly like her performance in the past. So unless they were, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think there is potential for her to get snubbed since, like Kit Harington, she didn't make the cut when she jumped to lead last year. But
Hmm.
I just think, given the Emmys' tendency to nominate shows they really love in almost all the big categories when they're in their final season, like they did with Mad Men and Breaking Bad and The Sopranos and all the other shows that they've really loved. I I think they'll continue that precedent and try to give the show as many nominations as possible.
We shall see. And well, I mean, I at least am on the same page of you as predicting MJ Rodriguez.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And as for Robin Wright, well, yes, she does kind of seem to be on the bubble given, I guess, the reaction the final season of House of Cards received. While it received an overall all favorable review from critics, still, audiences really did not like it, nor the finale, but still, I mean, Robin Wright's performance was singled out as the best thing about it. And not only that, but she also has the narrative of how she was the one who strongly encouraged Netflix executives to not cancel the final season, letting the 25 people involved with production at the time keeping their jobs in the wake of Kevin Spacey's allegations.
Hmm. But then again, the show has been associated with Kevin Spacey so much that some voters may view it as toxic radioactive waste that shouldn't be touched.
Well, although he's obviously been fired from it, but I mean, guess we'll
Yeah,
see.
but true, but like he was literally the face of that show for so long, voters might want to pretend it doesn't exist if they want to disassociate themselves from him.
Oh, well, we'll see. But then again, as you know, as an argument to be made, which I mentioned that Robin made to Netflix executives, is why should everyone else be punished when for Spacey's actions when they literally did nothing wrong?
I mean, that's true, but like I said, you know, the the response to the show was just kind of meh from everyone, at least the last season. I know the finale angered a lot of people with what her character does, and and just the fact that we have these newer shows that have come in and have kind of taken over the spotlight. I think that kind of will push her out into the cold.
We'll see. I mean, so far she has not missed a nomination for any previous season, so this could be the only one, or she'll prove a perfect track record. We'll see.
Hmm.
Yeah, so now to best supporting actor in a drama series.
uh,
All right.
I think it's, yeah,
Yeah.
it's your turn.
All right. The lineup I have right now is Peter Dinklage, Game of Thrones, Jonathan Banks, Better Call Saul, Nikolai Coster-Waldau, Game of Thrones, Bobby Cannavale, Homecoming, Kieran Culkin, Succession, and Michael Kelly, House of Cards.
All right, well, I have the same top five, but then my sixth spot, pretty I'm taking a big risk here, but since this actor was nominated for playing this character in another show and was a critical and fan favorite, I suspect Emmy voters will want to nominate him again. So my sixth spot is Giancarlo Esposito for Better Call Saul.
Hmm. Okay, that's an
It's
interesting prediction.
it's kind of like, I mean, Jonathan Banks managed to receive Emmy nominations for playing the same character on both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul because his character Mike Ehrmantraut became both a critical and fan favorite. And same thing with Giancarlo Esposito for playing Gus Fring.
Hmm.
So, and I remember many people thought Giancarlo Esposito was the favorite to win the drama supporting actor category in 2012 for his big moment in the series, but then he ended up losing to his fellow co-star Aaron Paul in a surprise move.
Yeah.
So maybe if voters who are upset by that win back then, they might feel this time it's justice time for him.
Well, we'll see if they even remember that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
they did they did award the short uh, category last, well, I think 2 years ago to the Los Pollos Hermanos training video thing, which is Gus Fring's fast food restaurant chain.
hmm.
So
Okay. And well, and as for Michael Kelly, well, obviously same arguments regarding Robin Wright, but then again, I mean, in fact, I heard someone else's prediction saying that he almost kind of feels like the Mandy Patinkin's kind of filler slot as he got in for Homeland the last 2 years.
yeah. Plus, I know. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going by my theory that voters might want to stay away from House of Cards just because they don't want to be involved with anything involving Kevin Spacey.
Well,
So, I mean,
well,
just yeah, just plus the underwhelming response critically and fan wise, just I think will make them forget about it. But
we'll we'll
we'll
see what
see.
happens. But I will say though, if Ozark does really well in nominations, I could see Peter Mullen sneaking into this category. I mean, he is a previous nominee for Top of the Lake back in 2013.
I was tempted to put him in here, but then I thought, well, it's if they really want. But then I thought, well, if Giancarlo Esposito was so beloved as Gus Fring, I don't see why they wouldn't nominate him again unless I mean, I unless it was so long ago they forgot, but we'll see.
Hmm. Okay, now on to Best Supporting Actress in a Drama Series.
Okay, and my lineup is Maisie Williams, Game of Thrones, Julia Garner, Ozark, Lena Headey, Game of Thrones, Rhea Seehorn, Better Call Saul, Susan Kelechi Watson, This Is Us, and Fiona Shaw, Killing Eve.
Okay, and my lineup is similar and different in that I have Lena Headey, Julia Garner, Maisie Williams, Sophie Turner for Game of Thrones, Ray Seahorn, and Fiona Shaw.
Okay. Yeah, so I was trying to decide like how many Game of Thrones ladies I should put in here, and I ended up picking those two because they seem to be the ones that always garner the most attention. I mean, we have seen Lena Headey nominated here before, and we even thought she would win at one point in 2016, but nope, Maggie Smith won again for Downton Abbey.
And didn't even bother showing up.
Yeah. But then, I could see Lena Headey possibly, well, if they felt she was unjustly denied her trophy back then, maybe they'll want to make it up to her. But I think Maisie Williams might have the better chance of winning because her character and she herself has literally grown up with the series. She was like 14 when it began, and now she's like 22.
Hmm.
And plus, Arya is kind of one of the most badass characters of the series. Although, and like I remember from the what I've read of the summaries of the show, she ends up killing the infamous villain, the Night King. Although some fans complained that her killing of the Night King was too easy,
Hmm.
but still, Arya's probably become one of the biggest fan favorite characters of the show because she's one of the good characters. She's not a villain like Lena Headey is, although we do know that Emmy voters kind of love villains in the supporting categories. So, but I
Yeah.
think given that Arya is kind of the badass warrior of the series, that might help push her over the edge. And I guess Julia Garner could possibly win for Ozark, considering that she came out of nowhere to get an individual SAG nomination, and there could be vote splitting for Game of Thrones or just disappointment with the final season. But I think what could limit her, Julia Garner, is that most people still don't know who she is.
Well, then again, we have seen lesser known actors win over the more established veterans at the Emmys in recent years thanks to this new voting system.
Hmm. Well, yeah. Well, we also kind of saw that sometimes with the old tape system too.
Hmm. Well,
So,
okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, we'll just have to see how well Game of Thrones and Ozark does in the nominations overall.
Well, 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 yeah. In fact, I believe some people are even predicting four Game of Thrones ladies in this category, the fourth being Gwendolyn Christie.
Yeah, I mean, well, but still, we've only had like three max get nominated at a time, and I suspect that'll probably stay the same.
Hmm. Yes, and 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 I'm bumping out Susan Kelechi Watson because even though she's been on This Is Us from the beginning, and I could see argument feeling it's time to put a spotlight on her, but I'm not sure if she's as safe as for a nomination as people think she is, given how the show's kind of on the bubble over how it could do this year. And I have Fiona Shaw getting in because I think she'll get in not only based on potential strength for Killing Eve, but her recent BAFTA win for the show can probably help.
Hmm. Well, I mean that I have Susan Kelechi Watson getting in just because of the strength of her Beth centric episode that was that aired near the end of the season, which will kind of put it fresh in voters' minds, and it's kind of what helps make Beth more than just like Randall's wife on the show because she hasn't really had a standout episode until that episode, Our Little Island Girl. And it provides a big turning point in her portrayal on the show, and what she does afterward will also deal with a big change to her family. So given that it kind of represents a turning point in the show in the way, those are the members of the academy that are fans of the show, I think will definitely want to recognize her at least with a nomination. But I do agree her nomination isn't all that guaranteed, which is why I have her ranked near the bottom. But I'm willing to take the risk and predict she'll at least get nominated. Will she win? Probably not if she's nominated, but I think she definitely has somewhat of a chance.
Okay, so are you ready to talk about Best Guest Actor in a Drama Series?
Yep.
All right, so the lineup I have right now is Bradley Whitford, The Handmaid's Tale, Ron Cephas Jones, This Is Us, Michael McKean, Better Call Saul, James Cromwell, Succession, Christopher Maloney, Pose, and Dennis O'Hare, This Is Us.
Okay. Well, I have five of the six. The top three are all the same, but then I have in fourth place I have Michael Angarano for This Is Us
Hmm.
because he plays. Well, I mean, there's two actors that play Jack's brother Nicky. One being Michael Angarano when he's a young man in Vietnam, and then Griffin Dunn as an older Nicky. Because spoiler alert, but I have to talk about this so we can provide context. But it's revealed in a twist in the middle of the season. It's been assumed all along that Jack's brother Nicky died in Vietnam, but he didn't die. He survived the war, but he's a very damaged man as a result. Not necessarily physically, but mentally, he's very damaged. He like has PTSD. He's an alcoholic, so he's not in a good place. And but Michael Angarano is featured a lot more than Griffin Dunn, and we can see more in Michael Angarano the transformation of Nicky from before he goes to Vietnam and when he's in Vietnam, and
Hmm.
then the incident itself that kind of leads to an estrangement between Jack and Nicky involving the death of a young boy, which is I'm not going to go into further detail because it's pretty disturbing of what happens, but the brothers end up falling out of touch with each other. But since Michael Angarano is featured more and we see more development in him, and particularly in how he and Jack interact, I think that'll help him get a nomination here.
Hmm.
because the Nikki storyline was so prominent that Dennis O'Hare, I don't think people will really remember him from this season at all.
Well, yes, though he is yeah, he's been nominated 3 times before, most recent of which was for his guest appearance on the first season.
Right, but that had more like attention to it at the time.
Oh,
Whereas
yes,
like
it did.
in this case, it was kind of a flashback. But of course, Ron Cephas Jones won last year for a flashback appearance. But I just think that Michael Angarano has the better chance because he's featured so prominently.
Hmm,
And yeah, and then I have Christopher Maloney in fifth place and James Cromwell in sixth.
okay. So, I guess and I guess now, moving on to the final category in the final drama category, and that's, Best Guest Actress in a Drama Series, and I believe it's your turn?
Yep, and this is my second super bet.
Alright.
So I have Felicia Rashad, This Is Us, Cherry Jones, The Handmaid's Tale, Jessica Lange, American Horror Story Apocalypse, Cicely Tyson, How to Get Away with Murder, Carice Van Houten, Game of Thrones, and Sandra Bernhard, Pose.
Okay, so the lineup I have the same top 5 in different orders, and they are Cherry Jones, Jessica Lange, Felicia Rashad, Cicely Tyson, Grace Van Houten. However, for the 6th slot, I have Connie Britton for American Horror Story Apocalypse.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I have Felicia Rashad in first place because I think she still has never won an Emmy, and I think maybe voters may feel with her being the legend that she is that she's overdue for a win, especially in the wake of the Cosby Show's legacy being tainted by Bill Cosby being a massive serial rapist.
Mhm.
Um, and with, but I do. But I do have Cherry Jones in second place. I just have her in second place mainly because The Handmaid's Tale's only submitting the episodes that it missed out on in its previous season.
That's right.
And plus, she's already an Emmy winner, so maybe voters may feel she's not due for another win right now.
Well, we'll see what
So
happens.
yeah, and then I have Jessica Lange getting in mainly because she was such a big part of the show, and she did, of course, win an Emmy for playing Constance Langdon the first time, and she'd be nominated for playing her again. Um, and then I have Sandra Bernhard getting in over Connie Britton because, like I said, Emmy voters love Ryan Murphy, and given that his shows tend to perform very big in their first seasons, I can see Pose getting many acting nominations across the board.
Hmm. Yeah, that is good points. Though, again, as we talked about earlier, it's always hard to tell how these freshman shows are going to do in nominations.
Hmm. But I just think, with Pose being a Ryan Murphy show and Pose being, a big step in terms of representation for LGBTQ people and people of color. I think if the industry wants to show that it's acknowledging diversity, I think Pose will be the way it will do it.
Hmm. You make a good point.
Yep.
All right, so um, I guess this ends our discussion on the drama categories. We'll be back soon with the comedy categories.
All right.